Hey everyone, in this video I am diving back into the world of Saga, going to break down volume 11. I really love this series and its characters, and I'm invested in what is going to happen with everyone. Although one problem with this series, if you're following it as it's coming out, is there are a lot of breaks and hiatuses in its publishing run. At one point they took a 3 or 4 year break and they came back for 6 issues, and then they took a 6-month break, came back for 6 issues, and then they took a year-long break, which is what we're in the middle of right now, a year-long break between issue 66 and 67. So that is a little bit annoying sometimes, and sometimes as I'm reading it, I'm forgetting what's the deal with certain characters, and I have to go back and reread past issues and try to remember what's the deal with everyone is. But nevertheless, I'm still really digging it. And I wanted to cover volume 11 right now to prepare you all for issue 67, which is going to publish in July, supposedly. So yeah, let's dive into Saga Volume 11, and I'm going to do a little bit of some extra refreshing and reminding on what the deal with everyone is as I'm going through the story. So let's dive into it. Saga Volume 11, written by Brian K. Vaughan, art by Fiona Staples. Saga issue 61. Gwendolyn is in bed with the Will, aka Billy. Sophie, aka Slave Girl, walks in and sees them in bed together, and she is shocked. Sophie asks, "You're sleeping with him? I mean, what about your wife?" Gwendolyn's wife is a woman named Velour. Gwendolyn answers, "My wife and I mutually agreed to spend some time apart. I was planning to tell you in a more appropriate manner, but apparently your dirty laundry couldn't wait." Sophie, she then questions, "Well, are you happy?" Gwendolyn answers the question by pointing to some scrolls that are on a table. In the scrolls are numbers of every parent on Wreath whose son or daughter was killed in action last week. Gwendolyn is in charge of making those phone calls to those parents and telling them their kids didn't make it. Gwendolyn, after explaining all this, says, "You ask if I'm happy? I will be when I'm never handed one of those goddamn things again." Gwendolyn then explains her secret plan to try and end the war. She is doing some back-channel negotiations with the Will's help, and they are trying to turn the entire robot kingdom to Wreath's side. Sophie, hearing this, questions the Blue Bloods? Are mortal enemies' most loyal ally for the last too many centuries to count? Gwendolyn tells Sophie, loyalty is a frickin' fairy tale. We now jump over to Alana, Hazel, and Squire. Last volume ended with Hazel's family's wooden tree rocket ship going up in flames. Well, this volume begins 6 months after that. With the wooden tree rocket ship, which was their home, now burned down, they are homeless and they are stranded on this planet. The planet they were on got sucked into the war between Landfall and Wreath, and the innocent civilian population got caught in the middle. In all the confusion of the fighting, Hazel and her family were able to lie low and blend in and, for the most part, be pretty safe. We see Alana, Hazel's mother. She has picked up a gig working in a nearby warehouse, doing fulfillment. Hazel in her narration jokes that the job is anything but fulfilling. Still, with Alana's meager pay, she couldn't keep a conventional roof over their heads, but she somehow kept them alive. Hazel admits that sometimes her and Squire weren't as appreciative of that as they should have been. Hazel, talking to her mom, says it was probably the constables that burned down their home. They threatened to do it like 1,000,000 times. Alana argues back, "Look, we don't know for sure it was them. I know everything about life is terrible at the moment, but I give you my word that this will not be forever. So until I can buy us a little escape velocity, we've gotta keep playing it smart, okay? Around the clock." Elsewhere in the galaxy, we go over to a spaceship, which is the home of a man named Irving. We have met him in some previous volumes. Irving is an agent working for the Brio Talent Agency. He represents various freelancers looking for hitman work. and he's the one that finds it for them. The will is someone that he works with. As Irving is on the phone, all of a sudden, Petrichor pops out of a magic portal on the ship, and she ropes Irving and ties him down. Petrichor tells Irving, "A client of yours killed someone I loved. Now you're going to help me find the will." Now, just a reminder on Petrichor's history. She was a transgender female that first met Hazel in a Landfallian prison camp, where she was with Hazel's grandmother. Petrichor ended up escaping the prison with Hazel and became an ally to Hazel's family. And Petrichor eventually fell in love with Sir Robot. But when Sir Robot got killed by the will, Petrichor vowed to get revenge and kill him. So that is why Petrichor has tracked down this Irving. Through Irving, she is hoping she can get to the will. Back over to Alana, Hazel, and Squire. Alana brings the two kids to a place called Pawn Shop, Potions and Microwave Repair. Alana is here to do a little business. She tells the two kids to be good while she talks to the owner. Alana goes into a back room and talks to a woman named Vitch. Alana tells Vitch, "I need some paperwork. I'm trying to get a job off-world, but the kids and I can't catch a ride without the proper documents, which will be challenging for us to get, conventionally at least." Vitch is very accommodating. She says, "Sweetie, you need some forgeries? Of course, let's make a deal." Alana tries to barter with Vitch. She offers a gun she has, a Coalition model Heartbreaker. Vitch isn't interested in this. She says, "Pass, they're non-lethal, and they don't even work on drones. No offense to your boy." Alana, she then offers the last surviving acorn from the entire rocket ship forest. Vitch, she also is not interested in this. She says, "What, am I gonna wait 100 years for it to maybe grow into a healthy vessel? Please, for all the risk I'm taking, I need something of fair market value." Vitch, she likes the funky looking ring that Alana has on. Alana to this says, I'm sorry, but this is all I have left of him. This was a ring that Marco gave her, and she won't give it up." Vitch, when she hears that Alana had a husband that died, she says, "Wait, you're a widow? Why didn't you say so? You want me to do something about that?" Alana answers, "Thanks, but I'm not looking for a love potion." Vitch to this says, "I'm not offering one, girlfriend. I have a still beating heart of a baby dragon in my freezer. What I'm saying is, we live in a universe of frickin' magic. And yeah, the ingredients are expensive, but get me the right ones and I can bring your husband back to life." Hazel, eavesdropping on this conversation in the next room, is shocked when she hears this. Could this woman really bring her dad, Marco, back to life? Saga, issue 62. We now have a flashback. We see Alana and Petrichor. The will had recently killed both Sir Robot and Marco. So Petrichor and Alana's loves were both killed by the will. Petrichor and Alana, they went to the bottom of the cliff where Marco's body was. The will decapitated Marco and took his head, but he left the rest of the body behind. Alana was asking about wreath magic to Petrichor. She asked, "Snow, Petrichor, what if we can somehow make it snow? Back on Cleve, Marco once got injured mortally, but I found the ingredients for a healing spell. Couldn't we?" Petrichor told Alana, "Nothing in the universe will bring the dead back to us, but we can start to make things right again." Alana asked Petrichor, "What does she mean?" Petrichor answered, "Whoever did this left behind their stench, the same stench I smelled on the similarly defiled body of my dear Sir Robot. You and I are going to hunt down the monster who took our loves from us, and we're going to tear him to fucking pieces." Alana, she at first is silent, and then she lets out a small laugh, and then it grows into a bigger laugh. Petrichor, she asks, "I don't understand what's happening here." Alana eventually answers, I'm sorry, but dedicating the rest of my life to some dopey blood feud is literally the last thing Marco would have wanted. Hell, it's why whatever pathetic zilch killed my husband left a trail, hoping we'd be idiotic enough to follow it. Petrichor can't believe that Alana doesn't want revenge. She asks, "So what, Alana, you just plan to let this murderer go unpunished? To just give up on ever finding justice?" Alana answered, "Guess that about sums it up, yeah." Petrichor called Alana a madwoman. Alana answered, "No, I'm not talking like a madwoman, I'm talking like a mother. All that matters to me now is taking care of my girl." Petrichor, taking offense, said, "Well, then it would be best if you leave me at the next port because you and I are obviously headed in very different directions." Alana tried to argue with Petrichor, saying, "You say that you loved Sir Robot, well then, what about his son? Squire has no one anymore, he needs you." Petrichor to this says, "Oh, I have a family to think about now, huh? Or are you the one who calls that the rallying cry of losers?" Alana responded, "Petrichor, I love you, but sometimes you can be an extraordinary bitch." And that was the last time that Alana and Petrichor saw each other. They parted ways after that. Petrichor went out to try and seek revenge and get the will, and Alana, she just tried to raise Hazel and now Squire. Back in the current day, once again, Alana is still in the back room of this shop, talking to this Vitch woman. Alana asked Vitch, "You're saying you have the power to resurrect my husband?" Vitch answered, "It's not about power, it's about resources. Get me the right ones and there's nothing I can't do." Alana, though, she doesn't believe Vitch. She tells her, "I appreciate that, sincerely, but I think I'll pass." Vitch tries to reassure Alana, saying, "Look, if you're worried he's going to come back as some sort of zombie, I guarantee this enchantment is nothing like that." Alana, she still rejects this idea. Vitch turns the conversation back to what they were initially talking about. She tells Alana, "If you're still interested in getting out of this suburban hellscape, I can make you a phony travel pass for, let's say, $5,000 a piece. And that's my friends and family rate because you've been such a good customer." Conversation ends with Alana saying she'll see what she can scrap together. And Vitch tells Alana, "If you ever change your mind about your husband, you know where to find me." As Alana leaves the shop with Hazel and Squire, Hazel asks her mom, "What is wrong with you? Why won't you try and bring Dad back to life?" Alana, disappointed, tells her daughter, "Of course you were eavesdropping. Kids, look at me. Like a lot of really kind, really helpful people you're going to meet in your life, Miss Vitch is a gigantic fucking liar." Hazel tries to argue with her mom, saying, "Nuh-uh, see this necklace that she gave me? It changes the way I look so people can't see my horns. She didn't lie about that." Alana responds, "That's how liars work, sweetheart. They earn your trust by giving you truth after truth, and then one day they tell you something you really, really, really want to believe, and that'll be the whopper that does you in. If there were any way I could give either of you your father back, I swear on all that's holy I would, but deep down you both know that that's just make-believe, right?" We jump back over now to the Will and Sophie and Lying Cat. The Will is looking at the fancy ring that he took off of Marco. The ring actually has some magic in it that makes it work as a translator. The ring was actually once owned by Gwendolyn, and Gwendolyn gave it to Marco because Gwendolyn and Marco used to date. Sophie and the Will talk about the ring. The Will is thinking of giving it to Gwendolyn. He's just waiting for the right moment. Sophie, a little shocked, asks, "Oh God, are you planning to propose?" The Will answers, "Well, it's something I've been contemplating, but only after Gwendolyn settles up with velour and whatnot." The Will questions if Sophie approves because he's getting the vibe that maybe she doesn't. Sophie tells the Will, "You know, I blocked out most of what I endured while being a slave to Sextillion, but there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about one moment when you caved in the skull of my captor. Most nights, replaying that memory is the only thing that gets me to sleep. I learned a very valuable lesson that day. The knowledge that someone who grievously wronged us has been snuffed out from this mortal coil doesn't exactly bring one peace. The wheel chimes in, but it ain't nothing. Sophie answers, precisely. And knowing how much pain this Marco person caused, I suspect your actions have been equally beneficial to my beloved guardian, Gwendolyn. You certainly don't need my blessing to ask for Gwendolyn's hand, but when the time comes, know that you have it. Until then, this stays between us. As they wrap up their conversation, Gwendolyn comes running over. An envoy from the Robot Kingdom is coming, and the Will and the Lion Cat cannot be seen. Gwendolyn tells the Will and Lion Cat that for now they need to get as far away from here as possible. We now jump back over to Alana, Hazel, and Squire. Alana is reading to the kids her and Marco's favorite book, the one that brought them together, the book that changed their philosophy and the way they looked at life. That book was A Nighttime Smoke by D. Oswald Heist, a book that has been constantly mentioned throughout this series. One of the big themes in D. Oswald Heist's book that Alana is trying to get through to her kids is a very anti-war view, and it promotes pacifism. Alana, reading a passage, says, "The old man wheeled close to Emies and, with his penultimate breath, whispered 3 powerful magic words that would forever protect the boy and everyone he loved. Revenge is retarded." Hazel, a little shocked, says, "Ew, why the heck would you read that to us?" Alana tries to start a discussion. She says, "Hang on, if you're offended, let's have a discussion why." Hazel just stands up and says, "No, I don't care what's written in your dumb book. We don't use that word anymore, especially not in front of a kid who's been called it." Hazel says this as she gestures to Squire. Squire gets up and walks away. Older adult Hazel then narrates to us, "I know now that Mom genuinely believed reading her son this story might eventually help save his life, but she was too late. Squire had already finished A Nighttime Smoke on his own, twice. He thought it opened okay, but it got boring in the middle, and even its most shocking parts were just more meaningless talk. In the real world, all that mattered was action." We now jump over to planet Gardenia. This was a planet Hazel and Marco laid low in a long time ago. On that planet, Special Agent Gale points a gun at the alien Ginny. Just a reminder on these two characters. Special Agent Gale is an agent of Landfall's Coalition Secret Intelligence Division. He has orders from his boss to kill everyone connected to Marco, Alana, and Hazel, as Hazel is, quote, "an idea, one that can undo the fabric of Landfall's entire way of life." So that is why Gale is here, to talk to Ginny and get information. Ginny, she formed a friendship with Marco when he was living here with his family several volumes ago. Ginny, she was a dance instructor. She taught Hazel dance lessons. Ginny was married to a man named Henry, and she has a daughter named Eka. Despite both her and Marco being married to other people, the two of them almost had an affair. And when Marco left, Ginny put an ad in the newspaper in the Missed Connections section. And the investigative journalist, Upshur, he managed to find that Missed Connections article, and he connected the dots and he found Ginny and questioned her, and eventually used that info to find Marco. Alright, so that is the recap on who these two people are. Special Agent Gale is pointing a gun at Ginny. Gale introduces himself saying, "Special Agent Gale, Landfall Secret Intelligence." Ginny, surprised, questions, "Is this about Marco? I haven't heard from him in years." Gale smiles and says, "No, I can't imagine you have, but I'm actually here about another troublemaker who may have paid you a visit. An alleged journalist by the name of Upshur. Help me find him and I give you my word, no harm will befall you or your charming family here." Ginny thinks for a moment and then she tells Gale, Yeah, that guy, he gave me a runestone. Told me I could use it to summon him anytime. Gale gives a sigh of relief, saying, "Ah, splendid. Ginny, you have no idea how much easier that makes my life." Ginny, she rummages through her purse to look for this supposed runestone, but instead she pulls out a knife and she stabs Gale in his shoulder. Ginny, she keeps the knife lodged in there, and she tells her family, "Baby, I love you. Remember, Mama loved you so much." Gale then pushes Ginny away from him, and he shoots her in the head, killing her. Gale, he then recomposes himself, and then he tells Ginny's family, "For what little it's probably worth to you two, I think the old girl made the right play there. You were never getting out of this alive." Gale then shoots and kills Ginny's husband and daughter too. Saga, issue 63. Hazel and Squire, not following their mother Alana's warnings, decide to go talk to this Vitch woman. Hazel asks her, "My little brother thinks you can raise the dead, but that's just made up bullshit, correct?" Vitch asks, "Youngins, does your mother know you're here?" Hazel answers, "Nah, she's working a double. We're supposed to stay in our house until she's back, but Squire said he was coming here with or without me, because he thinks you can give us our dads back, which is obviously impossible." Vitch, she then demonstrates that she can indeed bring things back to life. She says, "Is that so?" There's a little bug flying around her. She smacks it, killing it, and then she pulls out a little powder. She picks some of the powder in her hands and she blows it. And all of a sudden, the insect she killed reforms, and then it flies away. Vitch explains, "I can unclench the hands of time. It's called worm food, 4-dimensional dust, scraped from the tunnels between stars. Unfortunately, it costs a mint, and unfortunately, the longer ago you two lost your papas, the more we would need to turn back the proverbial clock." Vitch tells them, though, that the two of them are never going to get enough money to get some. Hazel, she says, "Wait, though, what if I'm good at, other ways of getting stuff?" Hazel saying she can steal some. We jump over to Petrichor. She has this Irving guy tied up, and she's been torturing him, trying to get information. He says, "I'm begging you, please, just kill me now." Petrichor tells Irving, "I'm not going to hurt you again, so long as the will is really where you say." Irving tells her, "Lady, I'm sorry about what happened to your boyfriend, but there's a system in place for you to get restitution if a freelancer did something out of bounds. But if you go to Wreath and try to settle this on your own, I guarantee the will is going to dismember you. And he's also going to dismember me for sending you his way." Petrichor is going to ignore this warning, but Irving continues and says, "Listen, you ditzy broad. A few years ago, sure, a well-armed Wreath soldier with the element of surprise might have stood a shot against the will, but that was frickin' then. I don't know what happened while he was out of the Union and in the wilderness, but the will came back different, okay? He's sharper, more confident, like he finally knows exactly who and what he really is." Elsewhere, back over to Alana, working in this fulfillment warehouse center. Alana's job is clearly not a good one. She is peeing by squatting over a grate. One of her fellow employees, named Packer729, warns Alana, "If a floor manager catches you away from the line again, you're gonna get canned." Alana to this says, "However would I go on if banished from this paradise?" Packer729 tells Alana, "You want to know my secret to success in working here? I'm high on fadeaway right now. You want a taste?" Alana, who had a little bit of a problem with fadeaway several volumes ago, thinks about it. She kind of wants it, but then she says, "I'm good, thanks," fighting her urges. Alana then explains to her coworker she's trying to save up enough money so that her and her kids can get off of this planet. But she's having trouble saving up for the travel pass she needs. Her coworker tells her, "Well, why don't you just get a job on a ship getting out of here?" Alana says she tried. Unfortunately, that industry doesn't seem particularly interested in hiring somebody who comes with her own passengers, her 2 kids. Packer729 replies, well, maybe not the major lines that work with the wings or horns, but on the boats that travel to places that haven't been forced to pick a side yet? I've heard the rules are a little more lax. Especially if your kids are old enough to work. Alana questions, you mean child labor? Her coworker answers, you say that like it's a bad thing. Most of the stuff we send out was made by little kids. Elsewhere, back over to Gwendolyn and Sophie. Gwendolyn dug up a painting from Wreath's archives. It is some artwork from the pre-schism era. In the painting, someone from the Robot Kingdom seems to be allies with people from Wreath. Gwendolyn explains to Sophie, I want to give King Robot a reminder that what he's bravely come here to do isn't a betrayal, but more of a loving act of redemption. Moments later, the envoy from the Robot Kingdom arrives, and out of a ship walks Countess Robot X, one of King Robot's loyal servants. Gwendolyn is at first insulted that the king did not send someone worthy of an audience with her. Countess Robot X then explains her credentials. She says, my title is Countess Robot X, but when I wield his scepter, I speak and act with the full authority of the one true sovereign. And he's had more than enough of your gifted skulls and other veiled overtures, so let's fast forward past the foreplay and get to the facial. Gwendolyn has Sophie present a scroll. Gwendolyn explains, this first document my page has for you is an official non-aggression pact, effective the moment His Majesty, or one of his vulgar representatives, signs it. Countess Robot X is hesitant to sign this. She says, are you mental? If we call a truce with you horns, the rest of the coalition, especially that bolder your pebble circles, will take it as a declaration of war. Countess Robot X believes that Landfall is currently stronger and occupies more territory, and it would not be a good idea for the Robot Kingdom to side with Wreath. Gwendolyn, she then presents a second document. She explains, in this one you will find a list that has never been before shared with outsiders. My superiors and I wanted you to see exactly how many governments have secretly signed pacts identical to the one we just offered you. Countess Robot X eyes the scroll, and she sees many other planets have actually secretly allied with Wreath. Gwendolyn continues, you see, we have many allies. Wreath is much more than a moon. It's a vast and expanding empire, one we hope our oldest friends will finally rejoin. We jump back over to Hazel and Squire. They are going to a sketchy place to steal something for this Vitch woman so that she will help them revive their dads. Hazel and Squire trespass into this abandoned building. As they are trying to break in on the outside of the building, all of a sudden, a sketchy, scary-looking lion cat is there to confront them. This is not the Will's lion cat, it is a different lion cat. This one looks gnarly, it's missing an eye, and one of its ears is also torn off. Hazel is scared. She screams out, Mommy! The lion cat tries to pounce on Hazel, but luckily, Squire blasts the lion cat, killing it, saving his adoptive sister. Saga, issue 64. Special Agent Gale is still on the trail of Alana and Hazel. Over in some sort of intergalactic diner, he has tracked down the frog alien Drankin, also known as Drums because he was a drummer in a band, whom Alana and her kids met last volume, and they became kind of friends. Gale asks Drankin if he's seen this woman from Landfall by the name of Alana, as Drankin happens to match the description of an individual who was seen in her company on a planet near here. Drankin responds, "Oh, not this racist shit again. I don't know what kind of shady debt collection outfit keeps sending you assholes my way, but I'll tell you the same thing I told the other guy. 1, I don't run with no wingnuts, no offense. 2, half the dudes from my homeland rock a tricorn, so you're ignorant assertion about somebody matching my description. Gale stops Drankin and says, "Whoa, just a moment. What other guy are you referring to?" Drankin, talking about the journalist Upshur, says, "Oh, you want like the guy's name? I don't remember, Upland or something? But he was a fellow amphibian, which made his assumptions all the more galling, dig?" Gale questions, did he happen to give you anything? His card? A runestone, perhaps? Drankin answers, "Nah, he just told me to keep an eye out for this llama chick you're all horny for. Rambled about a big reward if I steered her his way." Gale questions, "Hold on, he told you where to find him?" Drankin answers, "Yeah, but I wasn't exactly paying attention. I think he maybe said something about a lighthouse?" Gale knows exactly where that is, as D. Oswald Heist lived in a lighthouse. Gale, he leaves. Once he's gone, Hector joins Drankin. She was also in the same band as Drankin, and she was also friends with Alana and Hazel. Hector asks Drankin what that was all about. Drankin answers, "That creep was asking after you-know-who. I told him exactly what Alana told us to if trouble came calling. I hope she knows what she's doing." Back over to Hazel and Squire. Hazel is a little shocked that her brother Squire shot and killed this lion cat, but they continue on their journey to get this thing for this Vitch woman so that she could potentially bring back their dads. Hazel is still a little shocked. She says, "Squire, you killed something." Squire tells Hazel now is not really the time to talk about this, and besides it was something, not someone. They then break into this sketchy building and rummage around inside. While they are inside this building looking for this thing Vitch told them to steal, some sort of detective stops them. The detective pulls out his badge and then says, "Wow, Vitch is really sending kids to do her dirty work." He warns the kids not to pull out whatever gun or what have you they used on the guard cat outside. Hazel asks who he is. The man answers, "Lucky for you two, I'm one of the good guys." The detective then tells the kids, "Let me guess, Vitch sent you to get some worm food, right?" Hazel asks, "I don't like the way you said that." The man answers, "Because there's no such thing. This is actually a rare strain of a powerful narcotic called brain powder. It makes all sorts of impossible stuff seem real. When Vitch blew some in my face, I swear I saw a headless rat come back to life. What did you two see?" "Well, don't feel too bad. I fell for it, and I'm a grown-ass man. One who's actually partied on stuff like this. But me and my girlfriend, we lost our daughter a few years ago. Backyard pool, stupid accident. So when I met Vitch, and she told me the dead don't have to stay dead, well, I was ready to do anything to get my little girl back." Hazel asks, "Like what?" The man continues, "Some twisted stuff, kid. Vitch asked me to do some pretty twisted stuff. By the time I realized I'd been scammed, it was too late." Hazel asks, "But you're a constable. If this is all really just a bunch of BS, why don't you arrest her?" The constable to this said, "Well, Vitch said if I ever tried to make a move against her, she'd tell my bosses everything I'd done. That would send me straight to prison, which is the same thing as a death sentence for a guy like me in my line of work. So yeah, I'm pretty much screwed, but at least I can prevent other folks from making the same dumb mistake I did, which is why I've been staking out this place, trying to head off Vitch's next victims, which was you two. Anyway, I'll do my best to cover your tracks before the psycho who owns this place shows up, but you two should split." Hazel, she believes this constable, and she's very happy that he is letting them off the hook. Although Squire, he is a little bit more apprehensive. He says to Hazel, "I don't believe a word this firebug just said." Squire still wants to try and bring back Vitch what she wants and bring their dads back to life. Squire points his gun at this constable and says, "You and I, Hazel, are leaving here with all the worm food we can carry, even if it's over this pig's dead body." We jump back over to Petrichor. She was using some magic to jump over the galaxy, and one of her jumps brings her back to her childhood home. She goes to a chest in one of the rooms, and she opens it, and she pulls out what seems like a magic bow and arrow. As she retrieves what she needs, all of a sudden, Petrichor's mom walks into the room. Petrichor's mom is at first very surprised to see her daughter. And remember, Petrichor used to be a man. She transitioned into being a woman. Petrichor's mom does make a sort of comment and refers to Petrichor as her male name, Petrographo. But in the end, Petrichor's mom seems accepting of her, and the two of them hug. We jump back over to Alana. Alana's friend from work told her that if she went down to these docks, she might be able to get a job on some sort of ship heading off-world that might take her and her kids along, even though they may not have the proper paperwork. So, Alana, she starts asking around. Eventually, she finds a man that runs a circus boat that is going to be leaving soon. Alana talks to the man and says, "I wanted to offer my services in your security department." The owner of the circus boat replied, "Look, this ain't a luxury cruise ship, it's a low-rent circus boat. I need a lug who can handle drunken passengers and the drunken carnies I employ." Alana to this answers, "Well, I did a little time in the open circuit, so I have plenty of experience with creative types." The owner of the circus boat asks, "Forget that pampered crap. You ever seen combat?" Alana answers, "I served." The circus boat owner replies, "Oh yeah? Which side?" Alana answers, "If it's all the same to you, I'd rather talk about what's next." The man to this says, "Smart answer. Horns aren't much for my particular brand of entertainment, but we get veterans and sympathizers from all fronts, so discretion's the name of the game, miss." Alana, giving a fake name, says, "Call me Eames." The circus boat owner then replies, "Alright, and listen, our shows might not be family friendly, but this is still a family business, so the first thing I tell any potential hire is, no friggin' drugs on board, understood?" Alana to this says, "Oh yeah, for sure, on the drug part. Although you did say this was a family business. Did that only mean yours?" The circus boat owner knows what Alana wants. He does a heavy sigh and questions, "How big's your tribe?" Alana answers, "2 preteens I adopted back on Fang." The man asks, "Can they carry their weight?" Alana to this says, "Do you mean that literally, or..." Yes. If it means 3 square meals and bunks with bedbugs, my children are 100% willing and able to help." The circus boat owner to this says, "They'll get a lot more than that, but you better yank your youngsters out of whatever lousy daycare they're parked in, cause we blast off for our next world in 30. Alana questions, 30 days? The man answers, "No, 30 minutes. Is that a problem?" It is kind of a problem. 30 minutes is not that much time. Saga, issue 65. Alana, very excited, runs back to the tents where her family is staying. She opens the tent and says, "Kids, we're moving." But then she notices Hazel and Squire aren't there. And then she worries, "Oh, fuck, where are they?" Meanwhile, over to Squire and Hazel. They are still talking to this constable. Squire tells the constable, "I know it was you. I know it was you savages who burned down our treehouse." The constable to this accusation replies, "Son, I don't have the foggiest what you're going on about, but I know that deformed hand's not gonna hurt nobody." Squire, trying to be badass, says, "Yeah, we'll find out." Squire fires, purposely missing this man and shooting beside him. Hazel asks Squire, "When did you turn completely psycho?" She then grabs him and flies off with him. While they are squaring off, Alana is running around looking for them. She runs into a turtle man, and the turtle man hears Alana yelling for her kids. The turtle man asks, "You looking for the little girl and her drone?" Alana answers, "Oh God, yes, please, have you seen them?" The turtle man answers, "Maybe. What's in it for me?" Elsewhere, we see that Hazel and Squire have managed to make it out of that sketchy building they were in and away from that constable that they were in a standoff with. Squire comments, "Oh, we were so close. We were so close and you ruined it. Now we'll never see our fathers again." Hazel responds, "You're wrong, Brobot. Now that you tipped off the law about who you really are, we're both gonna see our dads again real soon, because you just got us killed." She then clocks Squire in his screen, and she hurt her hand by doing that. Squire says ow, and Hazel says ow as well. The two of them ask if they're both okay, and they hug and make up. And then finally, Alana runs over and manages to catch up with them. Hazel starts tearing up, and Squire is sad too. They say they screwed up real bad. Squire corrects Hazel, saying, "Don't listen to her. I'm the one who screwed up, Mom." Alana, looking at Squire, says, Oh, my beautiful boy. You sound just like your father." There's no time for sentimentality, though. They need to run and catch the ship going out of here. So Alana with the kids starts booking it for the ride that's gonna take them off this planet. She's yelling at the kids, "Faster, faster!" The kids are worried about some stuff they're gonna leave behind, but Alana says she brought what she could. Alana and the kids manage to make it back to the ship heading off-world just in the nick of time before it was about to depart. The owner of the ship tells Alana, Yeah, get your butts inside before this thing blasts off. I'll give you a few minutes to freshen up, then we got a company mess. I put you three in room 65, down the corridor and hang left." When Alana arrives in the room they're going to be staying in on this ship with her kids, she's kind of shocked. They're going to have their own room? Things are starting to look up. We jump back over to the Will, Lion Cat, Gwendolyn, and Sophie. The Will asks, what did the Robot Kingdom say in their meeting? Gwendolyn answers, they said, "We'll think about it," which is pretty good for the Robot Kingdom. Sophie, gushing over Gwendolyn, says, "You should have seen her in action, she was magnificent." The Will asks, "I don't doubt it, but you ladies really think this one meet could turn the tide of the entire war?" Gwendolyn answers, "Never forget that a wreath is a moon. Turning tides is what we do." Just as they are mid-conversation, Petrichor somehow teleports into their base there. Gwendolyn, surprised, asks how. Our security is airtight. Petrichor warns them all, "I'm only here for the Will. The rest of you want to live? Then leave." Gwendolyn asks the Will, "Do you know this asshole?" The Will answers, "Never met her in my life. Now get Sophie out of here. We'll finish this." The Will with a Lion Cat starts heading towards Petrichor. Petrichor manages to rope up Lion Cat with one of her magics. The Will charges right up to Petrichor, but she smashes him in the face with the butt of her weapon. The Will is then lying on the floor. Petrichor is slowly walking to the Will. She says, "This is for Prince Robot IV." Gwendolyn tries to use some magic. She yells, "Fulmo," but Petrichor manages to deflect it back at Gwendolyn, knocking her down too. Petrichor says, "I warned her. I didn't want anyone else to get hurt." The Will, lying on the ground, takes his extendable sword and he shoots it out, and it goes right through Petrichor's stomach. The Will, he starts getting up. He asks if Sophie's okay. She says she's fine. Petrichor does a new magical spell called Vermigo. She manages to make the sword that's extended into her body turn into flames, and all of a sudden the Will catches on fire. Petrichor then turns her attention back to the Will. She says, gloating, "I was told you were unstoppable, but you're nothing but a joke." Petrichor then uses that magical bow and arrow she retrieved from her home. She aims it at the Will, and she fires a green poison arrow that will be fatal. The arrow is launched. It is flying towards the Will, but Sophie, she sticks out her hand to protect the Will, and the arrow goes right through her palm. Gwendolyn screams out, "No!" Petrichor tells them all, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. and she heads back through the portal and retreats. She only had, I guess, one poison arrow with her. Sophie, she starts bleeding from her nose, and then blood starts coming down from her eyes. The whale, looking at Sophie, says, "It's alright, Gwen. The thing only grazed her. She's gonna be fine." Lying Cat chimes in, "Lying." Gwendolyn comments, "That arrow, it's poison, has no cure." Sophie then falls to the floor, and we assume that she dies. Saga issue 66. This issue begins with a flashback, back to when Alana was in the Landfall Army and she was in basic training. Apparently, she served with Special Agent Gale, who was not so special back then. He was just a normal grunt. Alana was reading a book and Gale, maybe attracted to Alana, tried to engage her in conversation on said book. Gale asked her, "Have you ever read Bellwether? It was shortlisted for the Hungsier Medal." Alana to this replied, "Yeah, I'm kind of allergic to books that win awards." Gale, sweating, said, "Right, cool. Oh, I'm Gale, by the way." Alana then rejected Gale, saying, "Hey Gale, not to be a total dick, but I just got out of a weird relationship right before I landed in basic, so I'm not really looking to start anything new." Gale nervously responded, "Oh, of course, yeah, I respect that, totally." Alana explained further, saying, "I'm just trying to keep my head down, do my time on the weird playground equipment, get this bullshit over with, you know?" Gale answered, "Oh, 100%. Look, best of luck to you." Alana to this said, "Thanks for being cool. See you on the monkey bars." Gale smiled, saying, "Indeed." And then once Alana was out of earshot, he cursed her out very rudely. And now we jump back to the current day. Gale has a pissed off look on his face, and he is at the lighthouse of D. Oswald Heists. Gale, rejected all those many years ago, seems to still hold a grudge. Gale walks towards the lighthouse. He passes by the walrus, Friendo, and then he enters the lighthouse. As he searches through the lighthouse, he eventually finds the woman Ianth, and she seems to be held prisoner here. Ianth, seeing Gale, says, "Hey, you gotta get me out of here." So a quick reminder on who Ianth is in case you forgot. Ianth is a diplomat, and the Will killed her boyfriend ages ago. And eventually, Ianth tracked the Will down to get revenge on him. In Volume 8, she tortured the Will and hooked him up to something called a magic VCR, so she could watch his memories, and by watching these memories, she then learned about Alana and Marco and their half-breed child. Ianth knew this information was valuable, and she wished to exploit this knowledge, and wanted to seek out Hazel, the half-breed child. In a way, she thought that Hazel might make her rich. In Volume 9, Ianth killed the photographer, Doff. Doff was the boyfriend of Upshur. Well, Upshur, he shot Ianth, and he kept her prisoner here ever since. So Gale, seeing Ianth in this prison, asks, "Who the hell are you?" Ianth answers, "My name is Ianth. I'm a diplomat with rights. I've been held here against my will for years." Gale asks, "By who?" Ianth answers, "The guy who shot me in the face, but didn't have the decency to finish the job." Gale, seeing Ianth's scarred face, comments, "Gross." "Anyway, I'd be happy to help secure your release if you can tell me whether or not your captor has ever had a visit from..." All of a sudden, mid-sentence, a green mist starts being pumped into the room. Gale starts coughing, and then he eventually passes out. And when he wakes up, Gale is tied to a chair. And now, standing in front of Gale is everyone's favorite seal, Goose, and the journalist, Upshur. Goose, holding a little gun, says, "One wrong move and Goose gives you a big ol' sad hole." Upshur adds, "Long time, Special Agent." Gale, tied up in a chair, says, "Upshur, listen to me very carefully. In a few minutes, you and this furry midget are both going to be corpses, unless you tell me exactly where to find Hazel and her whore of a mother. Upshur to this answers, thankfully I have no idea. When we parted ways, everyone agreed it would be safest if the individuals you're looking for never told anyone of their whereabouts. Goose, he then explains, but Alana and her kin knew no good nickins like you would still be hunting them, so she said she'd try to steer any bad fish straight into her net here, and by gum, it looks like we finally caught one. Gale, still tied up to this chair, is trying to cut his way loose, and while he is secretly making some moves, he's still making some conversation. He sees a photo on the wall of Upshur and his boyfriend, Doff, the journalist. Gale asks, "Say, isn't that Doff? Whatever happened to everyone's favorite shutterbug? Did the worthless piece of shit you're protecting manage to get him killed too?" Upshur answers, "My boyfriend was murdered by the woman you met downstairs." Gale to this says, "Oh, of course. So you kept her alive to torture her?" Goose, he then explains the real deal that's going on. He says, Upshur decided not to end that lady's life so that she could be rehabilitated. Upshur then explains his philosophy. He says, breaking certain patterns can be challenging, especially for someone suffering from the disease that affects Ianth, me, our entire culture. We're addicted to violence. After I lost Doff, all I wanted to do was kill the woman who killed him. But after seeing the grace with which Alana responded to the horrific way she lost her partner, something changed in me. I realized that, hard as it may be to accept, even someone like Ianth has people who love her deeply, and executing her only would have brought them gunning for me and everyone else I care about. So instead, I decided to break the cycle. I came here to my new friend's home of Quietus, and as I nursed Ianth back to health and rebuilt this old lighthouse brick by brick, I also rebuilt myself. I developed a process where others could also unlearn the lessons of generational trauma. Gale, I won't pretend to know what you've been through since we last saw each other, but I see in your eyes exactly what I saw in the woman who killed Doff. You're not evil, you're powerless and afraid. Whatever horrors you've been compelled to do by others, or by your own broken psyche, it's not too late to start making amends. It's not even too late to find redemption. Gale is not convinced. He continues swearing and arguing with Upshur. He says, our culture isn't addicted to violence any more than it's addicted to shitting. Killing is just nature's way of expelling useless waste. Some toxins were never meant to be absorbed into the system, and they need to be flushed out. Gale, he finally manages to cut free of the restraints he was in, and he jumps into the air, and he attacks Goose, kicking him. Then Gale grabs the gun that Goose had, and he points it at Upshur. He sticks it in his mouth and tells him to shut up. And just as it seems like Gale is gonna kill Upshur, he gets whacked in the back of his head by Ianth. Ianth was an evil woman the last we saw her. She killed Doff, and she was threatening to kill others, but thanks to Upshur's work over the past several years, Ianth has been rehabilitated. Goose thanks Ianth for saving them. Ianth answers, don't mention it. Let's just get this dingbat downstairs in my old recovery room before he comes to. Ianth then asks Upshur, you aren't pissed off, coach? I know you wanted me to lay low after my sterling performance downstairs. Upshur thinks on it and says, I was wrong. You warned us Gale's intake might go sideways, and I should have listened. I'm so sorry. Ianth to this says, hey, enough of the self-flagellation. What do you always say is the most important step of the process? Upshur, he answers, forgiveness. And with that, we end volume 11 of Saga. Alright, that was Saga Volume 11. Let me go through my thoughts on this one. I liked some of the stuff with Alana, Hazel, and Squire on this planet, trying to get by, struggling a little bit. Alana working this shitty job. Hazel and Squire hear from this woman that she could potentially bring their dads back to life, so they go on their own crazy adventure to steal some drugs, although they were lied to and told it was something else. So all that was kind of intriguing. I liked some of the stuff between Gwendolyn and the Will thinking of proposing to Gwendolyn. It was also fun seeing some of Gwendolyn's political intrigue, and maybe she's going to be able to win the Robot Kingdom over to their side. So will be interesting to see how that plays out. We had Special Agent Gale going around killing some people, which was kind of fun. Rest in peace, Ginny and her family. We had this overall theme of revenge and revenge not being worth it, which was explored in this volume. So an example of a revenge not being worth it would be Petrichor. So she sought revenge. She wanted to kill the Will, and by trying to kill the Will, she killed Sophie. And Sophie was an innocent in this. So Petrichor, by seeking revenge, made the world a worse place. And now, of course, the Will is going to be all fired up, and he's going to go after his own revenge, and it's going to make it more of a mess. So, yeah. But then on the flip side, we have Upshur. Upshur could have killed this Ianth woman, but instead he reformed and rehabilitated her. And perhaps that will be a net positive in the world by him not seeking revenge. And then Alana was also of the mindset that revenge is not worth it. She's just going to focus on being a mother and raising her family and trying to make the best life for Hazel and Squire rather than try to kill the man that killed Marco. So, interesting themes explored here in this volume, and I thought it was pretty good. I'm going to give this volume an 8 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts on volume 11, and one day I'll be back here to cover volume 12. But for now, next week I'm going to be starting a brand new series called Lazarus, which I think you will all dig, so tune in for that.